Good morning. This is Paul Whitley with CEO Talks from Dallas, Texas. We appreciate you joining in today, and we'd like to hear from you as to where you're joining from. If you got any questions or anything, please pass them on. Our purpose here is to help you and your business more profitable, how we can get there. Today we're going to be talking with a gentleman named Craig Scheef. Craig is the CEO of a little bank called Texas Security Bank that is growing like gangbusters, and we want to make sure that you know about them. Meet Texas Security, a bank for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs. So our effort today is to let you know that you have options. Community banks, smaller banks, much more responsive. During the PPP issues last year, I moved a lot of people from some of the larger banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, that just couldn't get chased. Got to throw that in there. They couldn't get taken care of, nor did they even know their banker by the time they needed them. At Texas Security Bank, you're going to know your banker. So let me introduce Craig Scheef, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the journey of how you got here and why you do what you do.
Yeah, well, Paul, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I started in banking back in 1988 with Wells Fargo and was in their middle market group. And then after about 15 years, had an opportunity to go work for a bank that was acquiring a number of independent banks throughout Texas. And they asked me to run one of them. And I really got exposed to owner-managed businesses compared to when I was at Wells Fargo. It was more what we call middle market companies, which are companies from 50 million to 500. So these are true entrepreneurs, and because they were with small independent banks, because of the lending limit that smaller banks have, they were just entrepreneurs and they were starved for information. And I did that for about 4.5 years and fell in love with it because you hear just some incredibly inspiring free enterprise stories that have some common threads that run through it. Number one, these individuals took on a significant amount of risk, a significant amount of sacrifice, went through difficulty, and you'd look at them today and they're doing good. They're the top 1%ers, but nobody really saw what they went through to get to where they are today. And that was the idea for Texas Security Bank, a bank that was focused exclusively in terms of its product offering and service offering on owner-managed businesses. And we differentiate the thesis was to differentiate ourselves through continuing education for that business owner and key players within that organization. So I left a perfectly good paying job in 2007 to write the business plan, to get regulatory approval, to raise the capital, and we opened our doors Cinco de Mayo, 2008, and which was really kind of a challenging time. If you remember, that was the beginning of the banking crisis.
What do I remember? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure your wife was excited about the fact you were unemployed there for a while.
Well, no. My wife's a teacher, so we had to live off a teacher's salary for about 8 or 9 months until I started getting paid.
I understand. So. Well, the mission of the bank is champions of free enterprise. What does that mean, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, the mission is to elevate the champions of free enterprise because we have such a deep appreciation for what they contribute to, frankly, society. When you look at the free enterprise system, there's no economic system yet devised by man in the history of the world that has brought more people out of poverty, that raises the lot in life of the average individual to have the liberty to make a decision on choosing your own path. You don't have to work for somebody. Go start a business if you want to. But we've all probably, if you've had any business classes, in any economics classes, you've heard the term free enterprise. But what it contributes to society is, number one, new businesses and small businesses create by far the most job growth in this country, all right? And if you look at the taxes, the federal income taxes, the property taxes, payroll taxes that are paid, it's paid by small businesses. And so Winston Churchill, I think, was the one who said, the free enterprise system is really, really the strong horse that pulls the whole cart. So it's a good reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely. Well, I've had the opportunity of working with some of your team members, Ted Lane and others with the bank, that have given me absolute support. One of the first transactions I brought to your bank, we were able to present the documents the first week, be an audit the second week, be in credit committee the third week. Obviously, things had to go from there to get everything finished, but we were approved, and I've never had that kind of action out of a bank in my career of many, many years doing a lot of transactions. So one of the big things about the bank, from my viewpoint, is the quality of people to work with, the responsiveness, the clarification. We need this, and this is why we need it, but we need it in this way. So you're not doing it 2, 3, 4 times. So from the entrepreneur standpoint and the people supporting those entrepreneurs like C-Suite Support, we're able to pull that together and get to the guys at your bank. But I want to compliment you on your team. Tell me what you did to build that kind of a team.
Well, first of all, thanks for saying that, and hats off for Ted for creating such a good outcome for you and the client. Well, a lot of it has to do with an ownership mentality. How are you deliberate on creating an ownership mentality within the organization? And one thing is, when you look at the leadership of the bank, they have skin in the game in terms of equity ownership in the bank. So we disappoint a customer, it can impact their pocketbook. We make a bad loan, it impacts everybody's pocketbook. But customer service is a critical core value of our bank. It's something that we measure. In our core values overall, we're very deliberate on how we promote that. We use it as a filter for all decisions that we make, a governor for decisions that we make. It's a big component of each team member's performance review, and we celebrate those type of stories. We make sure everybody is aware of those type of stories when somebody really gives a wow experience to a new client or an existing client.
You just made a comment. One of our sponsors in EO, and I'm going to bring that in right now. You're very active in the Dallas Entrepreneur Organization. We're very active in the Fort Worth Entrepreneur Organization. So I'd like to give a plug to all of the members of that group, and the SAPs, we're SAPs, but Strategic Alliance partners with that group. For C-Suite, Fort Worth EO has been tremendous supporters, and we've supported them as well. And I understand from your conversations that the Dallas EO group is well supported by Texas Security, and that group supports Texas Security. So I'd like to throw that into the equation. Thank you, Entrepreneur Organization.
Craig, I know you guys work a lot with small businesses and entrepreneurs, but what do you see as some of the biggest problems facing these organizations right now?
Yeah, well, I would say all businesses, but entrepreneurs in particular, it's getting to be time to dust off your business development process and keep the main thing, and that is revenue generation. And there may have to be some modifications. I know that's the situation with Texas Security Bank, but business development has to become a focal point. The other thing that I would say is there's a lot of businesses that are still sitting on a fair amount of liquidity from the Paycheck Protection Program, whether it was the first round or the second round. We really encouraged and did a lot of training on this through our training channels, whether it's our Bold Speaker Series or the Academy, on the value of a 13-week cash flow forecast.
What a novel idea.
Yeah, and if there's one tool or one resource that I would encourage a CEO and its management team to produce, is that 13-week cash flow forecast. It's simple, and it can be customized to the uniqueness of that particular business, but knowing where you stand on a weekly basis regarding liquidity and being able to forecast accurately inflows and outflows so that you can see around the corner and something doesn't sneak up on you, a big surprise, is really important. And a management team gets smarter and smarter and smarter about their own business by looking at what are the things that we can look at to forecast those inflows and outflows. And if we see a deficit out there, in week 9, we can be thinking about that right now and making adjustments in our cash flow in order to not have that be an emergency.
It's not a good idea to be coming into this Friday saying, oh, how are we going to make payroll next week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier to drive a car looking out the front windshield than the back.
That's right.
Well, one of the best things I think you do is not only after you give a loan, it's what do you actually do with it. And so the 2 favorite things that you guys do are that Bold Speaker Series and that Texas State Bank Academy.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so again, the whole thesis was of starting the bank was just that recognizing that significant need out there with business owners. They're starved for information. A lot of people don't realize that the average entrepreneur does not have if they have a college degree, it's not necessarily in one of the business disciplines. So you see business owners that come out of journalism, or they're attorneys, or they're doctors. And so we wanted to create a venue for business owners. One is the Speaker Series, which is a la carte type training. We do that virtually. And I'm glad we did, because we were able to, during Paycheck Protection, utilize that platform for information for business owners. But it's a la carte type training. And a lot of that training can be topics that would be timely. For example, what do I need to be thinking about from a tax standpoint regarding paycheck protection and forgiveness? But also within the Speaker Series, we have content that is duplicated in our academy on certain core fundamentals associated with running a business and enterprise. So it could be branding, it could be sales management, sales leadership, it could be budgeting, forecasting, benchmarking, how to fund a business, how to build a healthy balance sheet. That's the other thing that business owners need to be thinking about at this time. What can I be doing to improve the health of my balance sheet? And so that's the Academy. The Academy is structured like an executive MBA. We have an executive director who runs the Academy and Speaker Series. It's a 1-year program, 50 hours of classroom time on all topics germane to running a business, from cradle to grave, from starting it all the way to either we're going to build a succession plan for this business, or we're going to prepare this business to sell. And both of those things are things that need to be worked on as far in advance as possible from a planning standpoint.
Yeah. That's incredible, because I mean, most banks just, here, take the money, pay it back kind of thing, right?
In fact, I'm a trusted advisor with another bank.
Yeah.
And we have monthly meetings that we go through and try to help each other from a banking to the business journal. And one of these days I'm going to try to convince you to do that, but you're the only bank that I know that has this kind of educational series that does go out to help anyone that is willing to help. And from an entrepreneur organization, this is right up your alley, because you're already doing that. You know the benefits of it. And I highly suggest both Entrepreneurs Dallas-Fort Worth and anyone else around the country that has the opportunity of coming in from an entrepreneur organization, these can be attended both in person and virtually.
That's right.
And it's worth the effort to try to do that. And I'm going to stop right here for just a minute to introduce this character to Craig's left. This is Stephen Guilfold. He's the CEO and owner of Affordicare Insurance. See, you let me get by with that.
You're going to get it right one of these days.
And they do insurance nationwide. I've had the pleasure of taking them into many clients, and they can typically get 20 to 25% reduction in overall cost to the total company benefits, as well as keep those benefits to where they can get the deductibles down. So we have struck up a very good relationship in trying to take them into companies. So want to make sure you know who he is. Let us know. Contact us. Affordicare Insurance, Stephen Guilfold. And then the character on the end down there, Tabor Wetz. Tabor is a CFO with C-Suite Support. C-Suite Support is a business that we try to help companies as fractional CFOs. We come into your company to help you find how to get your KPIs, how to get your packages together for banks, You want a loan with the bank says you need to clean this up. We'll come in and do that. But at the same time, we'll handle all of your finances for getting your financial statements prepared, your compliance with different departments, with different areas. And C-Suite Support is a group of CFOs. We've been there. We've been a CFO of major companies throughout our career. Now we're fractional CFOs to where we can work with multiple companies multiple times across the country. So we're virtual. We're primarily in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we have clients in Austin, Houston. So anything we can do to help you find money, get funded, or get your financials in place to where you know what's running your business, and are you getting that extra 1% from all areas. And one of the items we're going to be talking about here shortly is the EOS system, Entrepreneur Organization System. And you let me get by with that again, that I just stuttered through that one. I told you I probably would. But at any rate, some of those things we try to help you with and instill in that situation. So,
Craig, you mentioned before one of the biggest things that small companies can be doing is the cash flow, that really focusing on that immediate. What are some of the other things that they should be doing right now that would help out those small businesses?
Well, as I mentioned, dusting off your sales process, your business development process, that is a critical process within any small business. EOS would tell you that if it's a core process to the business, it needs to be documented. That enables that process to be scalable. It helps your company to be more scalable. It helps to get people trained up. Now, we talked a little bit about EOS. We implemented EOS probably about 5 or 6 years ago. We actually self-implemented it. We had a strategic planning meeting, and prior to the meeting, all our leadership was to have read Traction, which is a book by Gino Wickman. And really, Traction, that EOS process was born out of something you're probably familiar with, the TQM programs that really impacted the U.S. auto industry, that were started by people like Duran and Crosby and Edward Deming. But it's such a understandable, concise way to go about running a business enterprise, because you as an entrepreneur, you felt the feeling of chaos within your organization. So how do you create a system within the organization where everybody's talking the same language, and you create a cadence to the business, and you create alignment within the organization instead of everybody going in all kinds of different direction, and you create accountability within the organization. So if you're a small business owner, or you aspire to be a small business owner, if you read that book, it will put you so far ahead of the game on creating some discipline and foundation, as we talked about earlier, some scalability to your organizations.
Well, following on with that, one of my clients, actually one of our common clients, yesterday we had our first meeting on rolling out EOS.
Okay.
Where it's a manufacturing company, pretty large scale, and they're constantly in the situation to where they think something's happening and it happens different.
Yeah.
So the management team, we went through our first session literally yesterday to start the EOS implementation. It will be self-implemented, and it's something that C-Suite can help with, totally appreciative of, and several of our clients, in fact, most of our clients, either know about it, but most of them actually use it. So I think both Dallas and Fort Worth EO groups have EOS implementers involved in those groups. Highly recommend you get to know them, look at the product, and see if it's going to help you.
Yeah. Well, speaking about products, just for a little shout out for you guys too, is that every single business that we're helping, because there's a reason, there's a need that they have it, what you guys have done, be able to come into these groups, has been phenomenal, because it's not just solving one problem, it's the entire overview of everything you guys do. And I know that everybody that you've ever guys have touched, it's just turned to gold. And so it's been an incredible honor to be able to work with you guys along the way with that too. And speaking about books, you're a pretty big reader.
Yes.
What's one of your favorite books you've read lately?
Oh, well, so when people find out that you like to read, that's kind of a curse because then you never get
You
caught
shared a
up
book
on,
with me.
on the books. Plus, I always feel like when somebody gives me a book to read, they're discreetly trying to say something to me, like, you got to pay attention to this.
Hey, Bozo.
So yeah, so a couple books. I mentioned selling, and that's really critical. Nothing happens until somebody makes a sale, right?
Yeah.
Nobody gets paid till somebody makes a sale. But
Take good care of your sales guys. That's what that means.
That's right.
Yes. They can be flaky, but take care of them. They make you money. So no. One book that actually Ted, who connected me to you, Ted Lane, who's the senior vice president for Texas Security Bank, gave me to read his book called Gap Selling. It's by a guy named Keenan. You can get it on Autobooks. It's one of the best sales books I've ever read. There's another sales book that called The Blueprint by Reggie Marable that's a very good sales book. But that's one book. And then I'm in the middle of a book right now that my chief lending officer, Chris Jones, gave me. It's called Essentialism. And it's a phenomenal book. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's how do you run your life focusing on the things that are most impactful. And, Traction, which we talked about, helps with that in terms of getting everybody aligned on keeping the main thing, right? And instead of going out, 26 different directions and moving the needle a little bit in each one of those, how do we find the one or two things that are the most impactful and focus on those? And as a business owner, you can get pulled, as you know, in a gazillion different directions. How do we make sure everybody knows what the main thing is? So, in its revenue generation, by the way. So.
Yeah, those are some good points. I'll have to look into that book. What are some of the biggest opportunities you see right now within small businesses and kind of where they need to be looking?
Well, I mean, the disruption that we've had over the last year or so is always going to create some kind of opportunity. I talked a little bit about essentialism. Here's another book that is probably the opposite of essentialism. It's called Blue Ocean, and I don't know if you guys have ever read that book. But it's just the concept that we've always, even though we've got to keep the main thing, and we've got to build this business and become better at what we do, what our core competencies are. There also has to be a little bit of an eye towards where are things going. So for me, I have to be looking at how is that entrepreneur, that owner-managed business, going to want to consume banking services in banking products 10 years from now, and how do I start heading in that direction? It's kind of like Gretzky, right? Wayne Gretzky. He went to where the puck was going to be, and he had an innate ability to be where the puck was going. We have to be thinking like that as business owners a little bit. Think about your business, your industry. How are people going to want to consume that service? And so technology is a big part of it. And a lot of what we do from a leadership standpoint, our board of directors is having our eye on where is technology going. There's a lot of things impacting the financial services world from a technology standpoint. And so we have to consume that information and try and align the organization to go where things are going to be in the future. And I think it's probably not a lot different with a lot of the rest of our businesses. So I think there's opportunity in the area of technology and innovation for every industry that's out there.
Well, the most common question I was asked to ask you today is kind of actually on that same thing, and it's where do you see like the cryptocurrencies and stuff affecting banking?
I mean, it could be significant. There's a lot of security issues associated with cryptocurrency. I mean, there's so much we have to do from a regulatory standpoint in terms of knowing our customers. There's all types of responsibilities we have to make sure and to be able to prove to regulators that we're not dealing with bad actors.
Yeah.
And cryptocurrency creates a lot of difficulty in that area. I don't think it's anything that's going away. I mean, I heard here recently there's athletes out there that are wanting to be paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now, That's something that the banking system, which is heavily regulated, is going to have to get their arms around. And the regulators a lot of times are slow to respond to changes in technology. I mean, you just look at cybersecurity. Man, that's a big issue for ourselves and our customers. I mean, we've had a couple customers over the last month that have been hit with spoofing and phishing and things like that, and wires being sent that shouldn't be sent. And how do you protect your customers from that?
If only there was like a TSB Academy or something that they could go to and learn about that stuff.
Yes, and we do have TSB Academy and speaker series on cybersecurity, and we bring in subject matter experts, and they give the latest and greatest best practices on how to best protect yourself from those risks. So thanks for that.
All right.
Another book that you you didn't allude to it, but everything you were saying is in it, is another book called Rocket Fuel. Rocket Fuel is right on the alignment of you've got to have the visionary and you've got to have the implementers.
Integrated.
And one of the guys in our EO group is in that book, Leonard Linsky. And his company was one of the highlighted companies where he was down $2 million and got involved and did the EOS process, through the EOS process and following it and having business vision. Ultimately sold his company for a little over $20 million. So in a short period of time. So there are benefits to do that.
Yeah.
And from C-suite support, we want to introduce them. We want to actually work with them or support them if they're already there. The other things with C-suite, coming right back around, is introduce you to people like Craig and Texas Security Bank. A lot of people don't know, and they don't even know their banker. They don't know who to talk to. So they're out there, they don't even know where to put the hook in the water. So our efforts at C-suite is to make that available, make them aware, try to bring the news out there. But when we bring the news, we need to have quality news to bring. And in this case, Texas Security Bank has been my go-to bank. I joke about it. I said, Ted, I've got you on speed dial. I don't know if that's good or if that's bad, but Texas Security Bank is on speed dial for myself and the C-suite people, and I suspect before it's all over with Stephen as well. So some of the last items that I'd like to bring around is you and I have talked about faith. How do you feel faith is involved, intertwined, weaved into you and Texas Security Bank?
Yeah, so it's a pretty deep subject for me because when I started to get the idea for Texas Security Bank, there were certain books that I'd read 20 years ago that really kind of came to light. And one is a book called Visioneering by Andy Stanley. And what he talks about is a lot of times as a believer, we should be guided by the Holy Spirit. And so I started to get this idea about a bank. And a lot of times we get good ideas and they just kind of come and go. We don't act on them. But sometimes we get ideas that go from being a good idea to being a nagging burden. And then they go from that to not go in that direction would be akin to disobedience. So how do we know what ideas are really are divinely inspired? And one of the criteria for me that I think is if it's so big that you know that you can't accomplish it yourself, it might be from the Holy Spirit, so that when that dragon is slain and we get to a situation like this, there's no doubt in anybody's mind who accomplished it. It wasn't Craig Scheef, right?
Amen. Amen.
And business owners can relate to that because there's so many circumstances where it's like, hey, God, I thought I was putting myself in the middle of your will, and we've got all these issues, and they have confidence and they have peace in those circumstances because I can look back on the 13 years at Texas Security Bank, and it hadn't been all roses. I mean, there's been some bumps in the road. But just knowing where I was supposed to be, that this is my purpose, to elevate the champions of free enterprise, kind of gives me confidence. And so I don't see how people who don't have come from a position of faith, how they navigate through running a business, being an entrepreneur, because there's so many circumstances that can be challenging, and having some faith and confidence has been significant. So.
Oh, I totally agree with that, and that was some of the things that brought us together. One of our clients had some issues. We got together, got things taken care of, and shortly thereafter she said, I just want to tell you, I think this has been a God wink. And I said, a God wink? And that's opened up the door for discussions of that particular CEO's faith. Well, that continued, and through that process, we continued to do business. We've introduced that company to many people, including everybody at this table. And there's been additional things that happened so positively that she said, this couldn't have happened otherwise. Thank you. Another God wink. Well, that comes into, we didn't do it. We just put the tools in place, and somebody helps somebody else get it done. So our job is to help people. If we help enough people, we help ourselves. So that's kind of the situation. We want to be helpful, and we want to be grateful. We are humble in wanting to be grateful. Tell me what you think about grateful, and what are you most grateful for?
Well, my salvation, I mean, to start with, and just to be blessed with, to be able to have a platform where I work with a lot of great team members who I love, and I feel love from them. Grateful for the country I live in and the wife that I have. Everything is grace. Grace is what? It's unmerited favor, right? Did nothing to earn it. And so I'm most grateful, I think, just for the grace that I've been given. And that's probably it.
Well, my own thoughts and our signing off is, the more grateful you are for what you have, the more you have to be grateful for. We want to thank you for joining CEO Talks with Paul Whitley, C-Suite, Craig Scheef, this character to his left, Steve Guilfold, and Tabor Wetz today. Thank you for joining us. Please let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you, help your company, help it run better, be more profitable, fund more, or whatever you need. Have a great day. Paul Whitley, C-Suite Support.